Once upon a time in the golden storybook of American capitalism, there was a simple and beautiful idea that the free market left to its own devices would lift all boats, reward the industrious, and punish the lazy. It was a fairy tale told with all the conviction of a Sunday sermon, a self evident truth that required no evidence at all. But reality, ever the meddling antagonist, has been steadily proving that the market is not free, not fair, and not even particularly efficient. We are now living in the late stage parody of capitalism, where the market is only free in the sense that the fox is free to run the henhouse. Corporations feast on government subsidies while denouncing welfare for the poor. And CEOs who mismanage entire industries are handed golden parachutes the size of small nations, while working class mothers can be financially ruined by a medical bill they never saw coming. The wealthiest hedge funds manipulate stock prices and retire early, while the middle class is told to just invest smarter. This is not the invisible hand of the market, it's a very visible fist, and it's been pounding the majority of the population into submission for decades. But here's a real tragedy. Even if one believed in the purity of free market capitalism, believed in its bootstraps mythology and meritocratic fables, the system we have now is not that. The market is neither free nor competitive. It is gamed, manipulated, and structured to benefit the entrenched elite at the expense of everyone else. Government bailouts are handed to banks but never to the people they've screwed over. Corporate monopolies swallow entire industries whole while politicians, bought and paid for, look the other way. And despite all the lip service paid to competition and innovation, the game is rigged so thoroughly that true economic mobility has become a pipe dream. Meanwhile, the global economy is shifting beneath our feet like an earthquake in slow motion. Nations that were once industrial backwaters are now economic powerhouses. The post-World War II economic order where the U.S. dictated the terms of trade to a world still rebuilding is evaporating. China is no longer the world's sweatshop, it's an empire of industry and technology investment. India, long dismissed as cheap outsourcing hub, is becoming a serious global player. And the European Union, despite its internal struggles, has managed to craft social safety nets that ensure its citizens do not go bankrupt from a hospital visit. And then there's America, big bloated America, sitting on its gilded throne, believing that the old rules still apply, that it can keep bleeding its working class dry while maintaining global dominance. But here's the hard truth. The rest of the world is adapting, and while we are clinging to economic theories that have long outlived their usefulness, free market capitalism thrives in environments of true competition, where innovation and risk are rewarded, where new businesses can challenge old ones, and where economic mobility is a real possibility. It thrives in small business economies, in startup culture, in industries where creativity and talent can break through entrenched power structures. It thrives when there is some level of oversight preventing a handful of conglomerates from swallowing entire sectors whole. And where does it fail? Everywhere else. It fails in healthcare, where profit-driven models turn human suffering into a revenue stream. It fails in housing, where the unchecked greed of private equity firms has turned home ownership into a fantasy for most working Americans. It fails in essential infrastructure, where public services are privatized into dysfunctional nightmares. It fails in energy and education and pharmaceuticals, anywhere the profit motive is fundamentally at odds with human well-being. And so we've come to the inevitable conclusion of our story. The whole system as it stands is top-heavy to the point of collapse. The concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a microscopic percentage of the population is unsustainable, and not just ethically, but mathematically. Imagine a pyramid built on a foundation of overworked, underpaid laborers, stretching higher and higher as billionaires pile more wealth on the top. At some point, the base can no longer support the weight. And at some point, the workers can no longer afford to participate in the very economy they sustain. At some point, Humpty Dumpty, our bloated, precariously perched economic structure, wobbles too far and goes crashing off his cute little wall. And when that happens, no amount of corporate think tanks or emergency Federal Reserve policies will be able to glue the pieces back together. No, the way forward is not to worship at the altar of the free market, nor is it to abandon capitalism entirely. It is to acknowledge that no single economic system, capitalism, socialism, communism, holds all the answers. The best governments, the most resilient economies, take what works and discard what doesn't. The future belongs to those who can adapt, who can evolve, who can think beyond Reagan-era trickle-down fantasies and Cold War-era economic boogeymen. America in its founding was a nation of thinkers, debaters, and innovators. Its architects were not afraid to challenge old ideas. If they were alive today, they would not be sitting slack-jawed in Congress muttering platitudes about how the free market will sort everything out while their constituents drown in debt. They would be examining, debating, questioning, because that is what leaders do. That is what thinkers do. But our modern ruling class does not think, it regurgitates. It defends a system not because it works, but because it benefits them. It clings to outdated economic dogma with the desperation of a drowning man holding onto a rock. But the water is rising. The cracks in the foundation are growing, and Humpty Dumpty is looking awfully unsteady. So we can either prepare for the inevitable collapse or we can build something better. The choice is ours, but time is running out. Defiance till death.